Hello, welcome to the seventh segment of the 12th lecture on sustainability in the environment. In this segment I'm going to talk about the phenomenon of discounting the future and the ethical issues that discounting the future raises. Discounting is a technique that is applied in cost-benefit analysis. As you recall, environmental economists use cost-benefit analysis because there are external costs that are not taken into account by the market, that, like pollution cleanup, that have to be worked with. So a cost-benefit analysis is going to include the things that would normally be in the market, the internal costs for the people in the present, but it's also going to include external costs, costs that are not properly reflected in the market price, and costs that fall on present people, like pollution cleanup. It's also going to try and incorporate external costs that fall on future people. So, for example, the costs of climate change remediation in the future. And this presents some problems. The first thing is that you don't really want to compare apples and oranges. So economic utilitarians argue for using a discount rate. This will be the main topic of this segment, to compare present and future benefits. And the reason is that money now is worth more than money in a year. If you take $100 now and invest it, at the end of the year you'll have more money than you have at present, even with inflation. So an economic utilitarian has to calculate the present value of the future value of these external costs, and then reduce everything to their present value to compare to the present value of all the benefits and costs that are going on now, and make that comparison. It would be a mistake, like comparing apples and oranges, according to the economic utilitarian, to compare the future value of some costs at their full value without discounting them back. And I'm sure that as business students you know how to calculate the present values of future costs or future benefits. The Excel formula is this, where the discount rate is filled in here, and the number of years or periods or whatever that you're going to look at is filled in there. We don't worry about the payments because this formula can be used for other purposes. We stick in the future value here and put in a 0 for the type. And using this, we can calculate quite easily the present value of future costs. So let me give you an example of why this is of the effect of this and why it's important. It's a climate change example. It's roughly a real life example. There are two economists, Nicholas Stern, who did a very famous report for the British government on climate change, and William Nordhaus, an economics professor at Yale. We can imagine them debating how to prevent climate change. And they can make the same assumptions. Let's assume that they both assume that climate change will cost $1 trillion. It'll do that much damage in 100 years from now. They agree on the cost also of preventing this damage, which is only $50 billion compared to $1 trillion. But they disagree on the appropriate discount rate. Nordhaus uses the market discount rates, and he claims that the appropriate rate is 6%. Stern considers ethical things as well as market considerations in saying that actually the discount rate should be smaller at 1.4%. You then calculate whether or not to take action now. And here's some numbers. Okay, so here's Stern and Nordhaus. They agree that the future value of damages of climate change is going to be $1 trillion. All right, so these are the same. They agree on the number of years in the future, but they don't agree on the discount rate. They do their present value calculation of this cost in 100 years, and the Stern gets the figure of 249 billion. The Nordhaus gets the figure of only 3 billion because of the choice of discount rate. Discount rate, I'm sure, as you all well know, makes a big difference. But it has the following policy recommendation, right? Because the cost of cleanup now is $50 billion, and the cost of cleanup for Stern in the future is 249. So you should act now because it's less expensive to act now. Whereas Nordhaus, who uses a higher discount rate, comes up with their policy recommendation of delay. You don't have to do anything now. The choice of discount rate makes a big difference to the policy recommendations. Okay, and the question is whether the Nordhaus conclusion fared. None of us are going to be alive in 100 years. Well, maybe a couple of you are, but I'm certainly not. So is it fair for me to argue, well, I don't have to clean up climate change now because the cost will be lower in 100 years? But I'm receiving the benefit. I'm warming my house, I'm driving my car, and all these sorts of things. But the price will be paid by future generations, just on the grounds that it's cheaper. So there's a bunch of things we should consider in our choice of discount rates, and I'll just go run through these: temporal distance, market discount rates, and the fact that the future is going to be richer. These all affect our choices. The first thing is this phenomenon of basically of pure time preference. We all prefer benefits now and costs in the future. Psychologically, if there's a cost to be paid, we like to procrastinate. We don't want to pay it now because, why bother? Why study now when you can study the night before the test? That sort of thinking. And there's an element of rationality to that because there's always a risk that you won't be around in the future. So maybe you'll be dead in 2 months' time. So studying now for your test, which is in 3 months' time, would be a waste of time, right? So there's always that risk. So there is actually, you can give a rational reason based on risk for the psychological phenomenon of procrastination. The other thing to observe about this idea of psychological procrastination and psychological risk-taking is that it involves a choice within your life. It's you who are choosing between whether to bear the cost now or whether to bear the cost in the future. Many instances of calculating present values of future costs involve different lives, as in the example of the Stern and Nordhaus, right? In 100 years, I will not be alive. And it does not make sense, really, for me to determine a discount rate that I might use within my own life of deciding whether or not to spend my money now or invest it for future use. It doesn't make sense to apply that decision rule to choices between lives when we're talking about a cost for me now and a cost for someone else in the future. Environmental economists tend to use market discount rates in their preferred because they think there's no value judgment involved. It's democratic. The market is set by the market. It's not set by some philosopher king. Heavens knows we don't want philosopher kings running the world. And it's empirically determinable. You just go out there and look, right? The problem, and that's what Nordhaus did. He picked a high rate because that's roughly what the sort of return on investment in the stock market. The problems with this, again, is the comparisons between lives. So what's appropriate for me to do within my own life is not necessarily appropriate for me to do when other people are going to bear the costs. And consumer preferences, well, they're sort of maybe a bad guide to value. I mean, what you're basically crossing the is-ought gap. You're saying that here is what is the case, that consumers prefer, or the market prefers using consumer preferences. The market develops a 5% discount rate. And then you're taking that and making an ethical choice, because it's an ethical choice what discount rate you use, because it's going to affect who pays the costs. The other problem, of course, is all sorts of discount rates in the market, interest rates in the market that you could pick as your discount rate. There's the prime rate, there's the rate that you pay on your student loan, there's the rate that you receive on your savings account, there's the rate of what you might make in the stock market. So it's not, you've still got to make a choice, right? Which of these numbers should you pick? And that's not given by science. It's still an ethical choice there too. The other consideration is that the future is going to be richer. And income, like every other good thing, has a declining marginal utility. So the more you have of it, the less happiness and welfare that you will get out of it. People, they may be made significantly happier by moving from no money to, say, $30,000 a year, and they may get a little bit happier when they make $70,000 a year. But people who make $1 million a year are not that much proportionately happier than the people who make $70,000 a year. And there's empirical studies that show this. So that's the declining marginal utility of income combined with the fact of economic growth, which implies that future people are going to be richer. It implies that future people can afford higher costs. Right? The cost to a wealthy person of, say, a $20 charge to clean something up is less than the cost to a student. The cost to Bill Gates of paying $100 for something is he doesn't even notice it, right? You do. So this gives us an argument in favor of using high discount rates for costs. So like procrastination gives us a reason for using high discount rates. Market prices, interest rates give us some costs that may or may not be appropriate. And this idea of the richer future suggests that we should discount those costs in a fairly high way, because the people who pay them in the future are going to be rich. Again, it's the issue of who pays. 100 years from now, the people who are going to be paid are not going to be me. So that doesn't seem fair. And the other thing is that some of these environmental problems that we're trying to pay for or stop or prevent may become catastrophes. And if they're catastrophes, then it may be false that growth will continue. And therefore, the future may not be a lot richer than the present. I mean, if everything that might happen in climate change in the next 100 years happens, I mean, all the bad, if we have the worst case scenario, people in the future may well not be richer than they are now. And this argument, again, about discount rates may be moot. All right, so here is a little question for you. Bjorn Lomborg, this is an actual author, a Danish business professor. He says that since the average Bangladeshi in 100 years will be well off as the average Dutch person now, and that's actually true. I checked it once and plugged in the growth rate for Bangladesh and got this. He's correct. Would let 100 people. We should let people in 100 years adapt to climate change rather than try to prevent the climate change now. And what's the best classification for the source of this claim? So pause the video, think about that for a moment, and I'll return. Okay, welcome back. What's the source of this claim? Well, it's not procrastination or the problem of risk, so it's not that. Maybe he's discounting future lives in some ways, saying that they're not as important as his life now, but that's not the main source of this. And he is discounting future preferences, but that's not his argument. His argument is that the people in Bangladesh in 100 years are going to be richer. And that is what drives the argument. That's the source of the claim. And again, he's not really paying attention to market interest rates. So the answer is D. All right, so that's just a brief introduction to some of the ethical considerations that go into discounting the future, which is necessary to compare present environmental costs and future environmental costs.